Welcome to our GP 2016 product tour. This tour is really just that. It's kind of a high-level overview of what Microsoft Dynamics GP looks like and feels like, and some of the embedded functionality in the system. If you've seen any of the other Dynamics products, maybe Dynamics Nav or AX or any of the Dynamics 365 offerings, the 365 financials or operations, this will look different than kind of anything else. And so this is the ERP system that Microsoft has been involved with and owned the longest. And so not that that's important or means anything, but it's been around since early 1980s, and it's gone through a lot of different reiterations. And of course this current version you're seeing is version 2016 R2. We are expecting a new version labeled GP 2018 to ship somewhere around the first part of December of this year, and so that'll be the next kind of major update. So let's go ahead and get started. I've logged in. I usually like to tell everyone I am the system administrator, and so you'll see down here kind of SA down in the corner of my main page, and you'll see up here where it says SA's home page or home. Normally that would say your name, and so you might have Ashley's homepage or Bob's homepage. But as a system administrator, the reason I point that out is because there's no security being applied to me. Everything's unlocked. I can see and go and do anything and everything in the system. You know, in real life, that's not typically how it works. Sometimes there are power users that have everything open to them, but there's usually just a few of those in each company. A lot of times there's security restrictions that kind of hide information or menu choices from different folks. And so just keep that in mind, that as you see things on the menus and the reports, that you're seeing anything and everything. And of course I have a lot of different things installed that we're not going to talk too much about today, but I have project accounting installed, I have manufacturing installed, I have field service installed. So if we were out running around with a set of dispatched trucks and technicians in the field, I have that module going. And so lots of different things that are available to me I have turned on. And so what's common though to everyone is when you log in to the system, you provide your password and you select the company that you're logging into. If you have more than one company, you land on this home page area. And so this is really for you to design, kind of customize your own menuing system, if you will, for the software. And you see a couple of quadrants here. On my home page, I've got some reminders. We'll come back to those. I've got some business analyzer section here. I've got my reports, quick links. If I scroll down here, you'll see that I have a number of other things. Procurement, we'll come back to that. I have some project time and expense because I do have my project system installed and turned on today. And then I've got some time card information here. So as an employee, I could enter time, and if I was an approver of time, I can come in and do that right in the system. But these quadrants are really up to you, and so we're not all going to have the same look and feel to our home page. You're going to have the things on your home page that you work with every day, things that you have no access to or don't ever go into. Of course, you wouldn't have or even be able to put on your home page. But this is configurable, and so if I like my time management up here, in my project piece over here, or my procurement piece kind of, you know, over on this side, it's really up to me kind of how I lay out my home page. And so I just drag and drop these things around and the system responds accordingly. And so we'll see a little bit more of that as we kind of drill into the features here over the next 45 or 50 minutes. And so some of the things that most users do is they bring reports that they work with every day onto their home page. And so here I've got an accounts payable open in detail. So let's see what that is. With one mouse click, I can actually generate that report. And so the idea is here that I don't have to go navigate through a bunch of menus and remember where things were. I can just, with one click, execute this report. And so, of course, I can change the size of this a little bit, so it might be easier to see. All the kind of off the menu reports kind of look and feel the same. And so these are kind of what I'd call the old style report. So it's really just getting information on paper is kind of what the idea is here. And so this is, you know, just a simple aging for my vendors who I owe money to. But these kind of older style reports do allow you to, of course, make modifications to them. So if you don't like the look and feel of what Microsoft has done, you can change these up. You can send these reports out. And so if you wanted to package this up and send it out in text format, you could do that. It's generally better to send it out in a PDF. And as long as you have a PDF creator on your machine, then Dynamics GP will see the PDF creator. In this case, I am using Adobe, but that's just because I've had it on my computer for a long time. But any free cute PDF, or you know, there's probably 2-3 dozen of them out there available that don't cost anything. Any PDF creator will light up the option here to create this, and so I could email this out. The system will create a PDF, attach it to an email, and open my email client and wait for me to type in the to and CC and so forth. And so that's kind of nice if I actually want to move this out to someone else. And of course I can print. I have all my reports today set to go to the screen. That's just an option. I could send them directly to the printer. I don't have to look at the reports before I print them. But of course if I don't do the screen, then none of you would be able to see them. And so if I click print, any printer that this computer sees, including my Adobe PDF print driver, but any printer that this computer has access to is available to me, so I can send a report out to anything, just like if I was printing in Word or Excel or any of the other kind of Microsoft Office products or anything installed on my computer. And so that's kind of the My Reports area. The Quick Links is really the same thing, but more for menu choices, and so these are windows that I might work in from time to time. And so here, you know, if I work on cash flow, for example, I might want to look at my cash flow calendar and see there's what my cash flow looks like for the month of April. And of course my sample data here is still dated April. If I advance that up to May, I can see here a couple of things. So I've got blue is good. That means that I have net cash positive for the day. Red is bad. That means I'm net cash negative for the day based on what I expect to come in and what I expect to pay out. And then of course the black number is the ongoing cash balance. And so here I can see I've got a 50,000 blue. So let's see what that is. I can drill down on that, and that opens up my kind of my cash flow explorer, and I can see what I expect to collect in receivables. So, well, not much there. What I expect to pay out in payables. No, the good news is I'm not paying anybody today, but I must have, there it is, I must have just some cash flow transactions in here. So there's May 1st, and so you can see on May 1st, I was planning on drawing $50,000 on my line of credit. And so without any other money coming in or going out, I'm net cash positive of $50,000 because I'm gonna take a loan. So so that's kind of you know, how you can do some simple management of cash here in the software. And of course, you'll notice the ribbon on the screens that I'm opening. The ribbon is the same idea as what you see in Microsoft Office. If you've used Word, Excel, PowerPoint over the last couple of years, you notice that there's a ribbon now to get to the commands and so forth. And so the same type of style of ribbon is used inside of Microsoft Dynamics. So obviously different choices because we're talking about accounting versus spreadsheets, but the same idea. And so you kind of notice the left navigation over here on my screen, much like you would see in Outlook, where you've got kind of mail and calendar and tasks and contexts and so forth. And so, you know, the idea from Microsoft is even though the choices are different, we want the general look and feel and the navigation to be somewhat similar to what people are used to using in Microsoft Office. So when they flip over to Dynamics GP, that it at least has kind of the same layout and kind of the same look and feel to it. And so that's kind of what you're seeing here. And so anything that you work on every day, if you reconcile bank statements, you might bring that on your home page. And Here, when you see some of the transactional windows open, you'll notice some fields in red. I have those turned on as an option, but those red things are things that we have to tell the system if we actually want to do something, if we want to take some action inside of this particular window. And so here, if I was reconciling a bank account, and I'll just pick one of my accounts here that I know has some activity, and I've pre-populated this and saved it so you all don't have to watch me type too much. But the red things I have to tell the software if I want to actually proceed and do something meaningful with the window. And so when I click on transactions, you'll notice here it's going to actually go get from a file that I have downloaded from the bank. It's going to get the electronic transactions that have cleared. And so you'll notice right here, you see it says electronic reconcile for just a couple of seconds there. And then when I open the window, the system kind of ticks off the checks and deposits that have cleared off the bank file that I downloaded from the bank. And of course, that file didn't come from a real bank, but typically you download your transactions from your bank's website, and some people reconcile now every day. Some people do it in the morning and the afternoon. Some people do it once a week, just whenever they get time. But most people don't wait until the end of the month and then wait for the bank statement to come in the mail as we traditionally have. Those days are kind of over, although you could do that. But most people just do more real time now, so their data is up to date on a more regular basis. And so the electronic piece actually gathers from the bank the checks and deposits that comes in, marks them as cleared. If it missed one or there was some problem with one, you could come in and say, well, this one was, it didn't recognize the check number because it had a point in it, and so that one actually did clear. And so you can still come in and kind of do the manual thing, the old-fashioned thing, and check off those transactions manually. And so those things that I work on every day, those reports I run every day or on a regular basis, I'm going to put on my home page, and with one mouse click then I can actually get to where it is I'm working or what it is that I'm printing. But before we leave this quick links, I did want to kind of illustrate a couple of the allocation options here. And so here we have what's called a fixed allocation, which means that every time we post a rent expense, which is a good example, I really want to allocate my rent out to my different departments or divisions, and I've got those set up as an example is in my chart of accounts is kind of 100, 200, 300, 400, and I've got 6 of those. Those are just kind of examples on the chart. We do have room for 66 alphanumeric characters in the chart of accounts and 10 dashes. Here I'm using 2 dashes, and so we do have room for 10. I would probably discourage anyone from trying to do 66 and 10, but that is kind of the upper limit of the system. And so here we can do fixed allocations. So if we have things every month that really we want spread out into different organization units, so in this case divisions or departments, we can easily do that. And it's fixed, meaning that until I come in and change it, these percentages are fixed. Now I can come in anytime and reallocate this if I want to, but it's fixed until I change it. The system knows what to do and how to spread that rent expense out into the different departments. The other piece that's fairly popular is a variable allocation, and we're going to use that with utilities. And so you'll see my same kind of 6 utility accounts now, or same different departments here, different accounts, same department I should say. I don't know, different departments, same account, there we go. And so I've still got my 1 through 6, 100 through 600 for my department or division, and of course 6190 is my utilities account in all of those departments. But you'll notice I don't have the percentages here because in a variable allocation we want the percentage to be based on something else. And so when I click on one of these accounts, you'll notice over here we have what the system calls a breakdown account, but that just means we want to go to this account and see 190.20.00, how much of that, what percent of that is to the total that I'm using, and I want to apply that much to utilities for Department 100. When I go to Department 600, you'll notice my breakdown account starts with 600 and then 90/20. And so what are these breakdown accounts? Well, these are non-financial accounts. These are unit accounts, if you will. And so here I'm using an employee count, and you'll see I don't have a lot of data, but I do have enough for April. I've got 60 people in Department 600 or Division 600. And so every month what I would do is come in and change these by way of entry. And in my Department 500, I have 65 people. And so there's 45 in Department 400. And so what the software is doing is looking at my head count every month, and then based on the head count to the total head count is figuring out how much of my utility cost to actually put into the different departments or divisions. And so when we look at the unit accounts, they're really up to you to kind of decide. There's no real limit here on what we can do. I have things like number of telephones, square footage of a certain area or department, head count we looked at, the number of fixed assets, really whatever you can kind of dream up we can put in here. So there's no limit on how many unit accounts we can have, and of course when we print financial statements we can divide by these unit accounts. So if I wanted to see sales by square footage, that's a big factor in retail. If I wanted to see number of cases maybe that I worked on, we do that in healthcare a lot, maybe number of tests that we administered, you know, it's really up to us to use our imagination there. But then when we print our financial statements, we can do, you know, we can divide revenue by square footage or revenue by head count or number of processes or cases that we handled in the accounting period in the month. And so that's kind of how the system handles allocations in really those two different ways. We kind of talked briefly about time management, and so if I wanted to use the software Microsoft Dynamics GP to track time, I can enter timesheets here, and so you'll see I have the option here to bring a timesheet in or enter a timesheet in, and employees could actually log in with a very, very small user license, small meaning cheap user license. We could have every employee in the company with a login, but all they would be able to see and do is just enter their time. And so we have an employee self-service license, it's called, and it's a very small cost, and we get one for everybody. They can come in and put their time in. They could enter, you know, a request for paid time off, vacation time, and so forth. You see the types of things that an employee could do. Look at their pay stub. They could update their direct deposit information. They could view their benefits, maybe update their W-4. Maybe they had a family addition. They had a child, or were divorced, or whatever it might be, got married. They could come in and update their withholding information. They could also come in at the end of the year and print their W-2. And so I've only got one employee out here that I've generated a W-2 on, but maybe they're at the bank on Saturday trying to get a car loan, and the bank says, okay, we need your W-2 for the last several years, or maybe a copy of your last 2 or 3 months pay stubs. Well, they could go to a computer, maybe their phone, and log in, retrieve the information, and again, they could email this from the system right to the bank loan officer, or potentially print it off to Adobe and send it. But lots of options here on employee self-service and getting information out to people when they need it. Sometimes people need things when the accounting office is closed, and so this makes it a little bit more kind of self-service-ish, as the case may be. Sometimes, you know, people, they're not actually in the system per se, but they do want to put in a request for PTO, and so sometimes we'll do that through an app. And so here's the Dynamics GP Time Management app that I opened here, and this app runs on any device, so iPhone, iPad, Android, Windows, whatever it might be. And so as a user here in my sample company, I can come in, I can kind of see my calendar of PTO requests. I can see my sick and vacation balances here. And so, you know, this would allow me to kind of take at a glance those things that the bank of time I have left. It would also, there's what I was trying to is the holiday time that my company offers a floating holiday, and I've got 2 of those left, 2 at least full days left. I can come in and see my saved information, my submitted and historical time, and so submitted maybe not yet approved by my manager, saved as I'm still working on it. But let's say tomorrow I was going to take a day off, and so probably wouldn't be a sick day because tomorrow isn't here. We don't generally pre-plan those, if you know what I mean. But maybe I'm going to take a half a day's vacation, and so I can put a half a day's vacation on my calendar. This will automatically then go to my supervisor, whoever's set up in the workflow or the routing of this, so that it gets routed to someone for approval, and then on in so payroll knows about it and doesn't have to rekey that. If I decide, well, I'm going to take actually the whole day, I can come back and change that to an 8-hour day, or I could just put in what I'm going to take. I'm going to take 3.75 hours off if your company allows you to do that, and so I'm just going to delete that off my PTO calendar there. But this little app is available. It's part of the system, and lots of folks use this for managing PTO if we wouldn't otherwise have people logging into the system. But of course, if we have people coming in to enter time, enter their time every day, then we wouldn't necessarily need the app, but we could use that. And so same thing with time cards. If I am going to come in and enter a time card, there's workflow attached to that, so that this might get routed for approval, so to my supervisor, or that person then sends it on to someone else, maybe the project manager if I'm working on a project. And so all of the workflow is included out of the box, and of course has to be set up to your liking and in the way that you would like the hierarchy to work. But here's a list of time cards. And then, of course, as I kind of hover over each one, I can see the information on the timesheet, and so I can see the date and the pay code that this time was captured against, so just my hourly pay rate here. And I see the hours that I've keyed in for those dates. And as an option, the system shows my department, what position I have, and some demographics up here and so on. And if I do have security, well, obviously if I'm entering a time card, I would have that security. And so that drills me back to the time card here screen, where I could enter, and then we see kind of the workflow buttons up here. So if I were to start entering time, maybe I entered 3.5 hours on Monday I worked, but I did work a little extra on Tuesday. And so if I had the workflow set up with my manager and so forth, then I submit this for the workflow engine to pick up and route out to the different people that might have approval authority. Now, they could be Dynamics GP users or not. Typically they're not, but if they are, they can approve the workflow within the software. But if my manager is not otherwise a GP user, then the workflow goes out in an email, and then typically they have the approve or the reject buttons that get attached to that email. You probably all had voting emails that you get, and you can vote on a topic or something in an email. Well, that's what the workflow does, is it attaches those buttons, the approve and deny or reject button. And so so that's typically how it's done, is through email, but it could be done from the software itself. And so lots of features around timekeeping and employee tracking and expense tracking and so forth. Here I can enter expense reports, and if I'm an approver, I can approve expense reports if I'm putting those in against a project and so forth. And so while we're down here, we'll look at the procurement. So we do have a requisition system, and so we'll just go ahead and open that window up, and I'll grab one that's already in the system here. And so here's a requisition that I have entered, and here's what it would look like, kind of all tidied up. Not a lot of red here, so not a lot of requirements. We want people to be able to do requisitions without knowing necessarily where we buy the item. And so my vendor ID here could be blank, and you'll see it is. So I want one of this paint equipment, and I'm attaching a quote. It's about $12,500. It's going to ship into our main warehouse location, because I could have other stores or inventory locations. But the vendor, I don't know. Now, if I have the quote, I probably knew the vendor, but you know, the requisitioner doesn't have to know all of the pricing and the vendor. All they have to do is tell us what they want. And from there, then the purchasing people or maybe the manager, whoever approves this, would fill in some more. Maybe they know the vendor or they want to dictate the vendor. And so maybe my boss puts the vendor in, but maybe the pricing still got to be worked out. And so people along the hierarchy, along the chain of approvals here could put in as much as they know. But at some point before this is final approved and actually creates the purchase order in the system, obviously we have to know how much, where we're buying it, and we have to, you know, give this the information that the system needs. And so I've submitted this a couple of times and should have some history on it. Yeah, I let it fail out just so you could see kind of how this builds up. And so here I originally submitted it. It was rejected, and then it tells me why. I submitted it again. It rejected. I did it again, and so on. And so we keep track of all of the workflow. You know, and who was the user, and so you'll see here it was all me every time, and so since this is my demo system, but normally that would have who approved it, who rejected it, and why. I could maybe fix something and resubmit it. Maybe I'll say, well, we're not paying $12,500, your budget's only $10,000, remember? So you know, resubmit it at $10,000, and so then maybe I go back and get the quote updated or take something off and resubmit it. And so we keep track of all of that indefinitely and how things got to be where they're at. And so we know who approved, who rejected, and why, and comments along the way. And so there's full history, kind of cradle to grave, of the workflow. Now I mentioned the attached quote, and so here it says per attached quote. Well, I see this little piece of paper up here, or a little post-it note, and so let me flip to another requisition. You see the post-it note here kind of just kind of sitting there blank. Well, on my requisition though, it had lines on it, and so what's the story? Well, the lines mean that there's something back there, and so when I click on it, of course I could type something here. You know, ask Joe about discounts. So I might want to just type something just kind of note-wise more for myself, but I've got the little paper clip down here, which means that there's an Olay container, and that technology kind of goes way back many, many years. And I actually have a scanner, but I'm not hooked up to that scanner today, so it's going to take a few seconds to figure out that my scanner's not out there, because I can scan directly into any transaction or master record. So if I've got a proposal or something a customer signed, maybe a contract, and I want to scan that directly into a customer order, or in this case I'm saying I'm going to scan in the vendor's quote, I can do that. And so there it is, opened up down here, and yeah, it's trying to establish a connection with a scanner that's in one of our other offices, and so it takes just a couple of seconds to figure out that, hey, that scanner's not out there right now. And so when the attachment window opens, then we see that it can hold unlimited attachments, and if we have something scanned on, there it is, if we have something already on the network, we can just click the attach button, and we could come out and just you know, attach anything that would normally be attachable. So anything that's in electronic format, and of course we can see those documents. So if I highlight that PDF and open that up, there it is over on my other screen, and so we see that that in fact opened the document, where if I you know, maybe I'm looking at this Word document, and that's going to open on my other monitor, and so there that one is. And so it brings a copy of it into the Dynamics GP database. If those originals got deleted off the network drive or my C drive, that's okay. I have my copy here, so it's actually made a copy and brought it into the system. And of course you'll see the scan button is grayed out there because I'm not connected to the scanner today, but if I was, I'd be able to scan directly into the window as well. If for some reason I decide I don't want this, and I just come over here and delete it and say yes, and maybe I don't want a record of something I'm doing here. I don't want anybody to know kind of how I got to where I got. Well, you'll see the deleted tab here, and remember, as the system administrator, I have full access to everything. Maybe not all users actually know that this deleted tab exists, and if they do, they maybe can't go and really delete things off. And so until it's deleted off the deleted tab, it's not deleted. And so that's a good way to kind of have some control that maybe somebody's playing some games here and are deleting some things that they shouldn't. And so we do keep track of it until someone that has the right authority actually comes in and deletes it off of this tab. And so that works the exact same way on any part of the system, any transaction screen, any master record, so a customer, vendor, a payables entry, a cash receipt, a general ledger journal entry, anything like that works the same way. Okay, so we're kind of working our way up the page here. The next stop will be the Business Analyzer, and I'm going to change the focus of my page by just clicking this one icon, and that tucks everything either to the right or to the left or to the bottom based on your preferences. And so this allows me to kind of focus a little bit more on one particular area. And of course, if I want to change the focus back to what it was, I just simply click that icon again. But the Business Analyzer area is really the spot that we can put our charts and our graphs and our key performance kind of metrics. There's a couple hundred of these that come with the software. Of course, you can change any of those up to your own liking. You can invent your own from scratch. We could build something for you and put out there, and then that could show up on your home page. And so here, that one's not very impressive because it's zeros, but here you can see that we're still looking at the underlying data in my system, but instead of running a traditional report like a trial balance or a cash report of some sort, we're really looking at it in a little easier method of interpretation. Of course, you know, we have to live with that. These aren't exact numbers here. This is points on a graph in this particular example. But, you know, if I'm the CFO or the CEO or the owner, you know, this speaks a lot, and it's not saying what I want to hear, and so this does not look good. We're really tailing off here on cash. Maybe that's why I needed that $50,000 line of credit draw on May 1st. But of course, I can get to the actual raw data, and so another graph or chart that I have is the actual cash, where I can see kind of you know, last year, this year, what changed, and so on. And again, there's a couple hundred of these that you have access to. I'm just pulling a few examples here so you can see kind of what types of things are available here. Is kind of a heat map, as we call it, where we see where our product is being sold and kind of to what level. And so, you know, I'm probably headquartered in Minnesota here, and so a lot of my sales are kind of right around me. But look, I'm getting some sales, not a lot, but around 60,000 out there, way out on the West Coast. And so I must have a sales rep out there, or somebody that I've connected up with. And so, you know, just different things that you can use to kind of look at your data and present the numbers in a little bit more modern fashion, and not necessarily just numbers on paper. And so, and when I say there's a couple hundred, here's the list. You'll see on the right here, these are those 5 things that I have that I just looked at. But here's the list of available reports and charts and graphs. We've got stuff to do with payroll, sales, gross profit, project, inventory, purchases, receivables, kind of just hardcore accounting data, top customer information, a lot of inventory things. So, and again, we can modify any of these to our own liking. This is just stuff Microsoft has done to kind of get us going, or we can build our own. So if we don't find anything in the list and say, yeah, we just need something that is just totally different, well, that's fine. We can help you do that or do that for you and then show you how to maintain it. And so this is good if I'm a Dynamics GP user. That's helpful. But, you know, a lot of times people looking at the data, they don't have a login. They're not accounting system or ERP system users. And so these particular reports are actually available through the browser on any device. So any browser, Chrome, Internet Explorer, Edge, and because they're available on any browser, that means they're available on any device. And so, you know, maybe the boss uses an iPad or an iPhone. Well, okay, that's fine. We still want to be able to push our charts and KPIs out to the boss. And so I'm going to drill into the folder where we were looking at mostly, which is my financial data. Here's a number of reports that could be printed. And so again, if I was laying on the beach with my iPad, hopefully I wouldn't need to print a trial balance, but I could. But charts and KPIs, here's kind of the financial charts and KPIs that are available. And I think this is the one we were looking at on my screen inside of the software. And so nothing's stored there, so it has to go get the data from my system database. And so here you can see that regardless of where I'm looking at it, I get the same version of the truth because there's nothing stored here. It's reading the data live as I request, in this case, the chart. So whether I'm looking at it inside of the system or on my iPad or my iPhone or my Android or on my laptop, which I'm doing today, it's all available to me. Okay, then kind of the last area of my home page, or the reminder, this is things that are happening under the hood. Yes, I could go get a report and showed past due customer transactions. I could run that report and look at it, but I'd have to go get the report, I'd generate it, and then take a look, which I could do. But this is really the software, and the reminder area is really the software kind of coming up with what we want to know about, what we want out of the system, and having the software tell us when a condition exists. And so here, let's just take a look. I've got customers over their credit limit. So when I click on that, we knew there were 7. It opens a window here called my Smart List. This is my ad hoc query tool, which allows me, based on security, to go and get data out of the system any place I have access in the form that I want, not the way Microsoft thought that I needed the report, not some developer in some dark closet in Fargo, North Dakota, where this is written and supported and maintained. The way I want it, in the shape that I want it, and how I want it, and when I want it. And so here's a list of customers over their credit limit. If I take a peek kind of behind the scenes here, you see that that was an option here on the list. And so these are all the different kind of queries, if you will, that come with the Smart List. And again, we drill into the different parts of the system. And so, you know, if I was using fixed assets, I've got a number of things there. We looked at sales. Here's purchasing. If I wanted to see vendors that maybe I issued 1099s to, but I didn't have a tax ID number, this is kind of a problem. So if you're kind of on the hardcore accounting side, this will look familiar. I'm supposed to issue them a tax form. I paid them a lot of money, but for some reason I don't have their tax number. Well, I could send these guys a letter, and so because I switched to vendors, it senses now I'm in the vendor part of the database. When I use Microsoft Word, which is fully embedded here, integrated, there's about 50 or so letters that come with the system, but same rule, I can edit up anything Microsoft did. I can add unlimited letter templates of my own, or I could use theirs out of the box, which is kind of what you're seeing happen here. So I happen to know there's a request for a W-9 which collects the tax ID number. Well, maybe these guys I just talked to on the phone, they're going to send it over. So there's still a problem. I haven't resolved it because I don't have it, but I'm not going to send them a letter. So I'm just going to do these 4, and then kind of how you would normally sign that letter, anything you want to put in contact info-wise. And then when I click finish, we're going to get a little mail merge with the letter template and Microsoft Word. And there it is, open down here. And so here's my letter template. Of course, this is my little sample company today, but you know, this is Word. I do whatever I'd normally do in Word. I have the full functionality of Word. Here's the template saying, hey, fill out this W-9, send it back. And based on my signature line that I typed in there, already had saved, it's, you know, I could either sign these or just let it go like that. And I asked for 4 of them, and I have 4 different ones based on the template. And so however I would normally get these out to people, if I decide I'm going to email them or print them and put them in the mail or scan them or fax them or whatever it is, at this point they're just Word documents. And so I do whatever I'd normally do. So, well, that's good, but sometimes, you know, we don't want to use Word, we want to use Excel. And so maybe I want to look just at my accounting data. And so here's just a list of kind of my, Well, there's my current financials journal. And so just things that have been posted into the GL from my financial system, so probably journal entries for the most part. And so this has Excel functionality. And so, you know, you can sort any column. Now you can imagine if you're on the accounting side, if you were looking for a certain dollar amount in the general ledger of hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of transactions, and you weren't sure which month of the year that the amount might have posted, or maybe don't know the account, but you know that it's, you know, 50 bucks type thing. Well, this is a pretty quick way to sort debits and credits. Very, very fast. That's faster than you can print off a report and try to find a certain dollar amount by the paper method. And so you can put searches on these if you were looking for just a certain account. You'll see I've got a couple of searches on this already, but maybe I was looking for just a particular account, and of course this doesn't have to be exact. It could be that the account started with. So maybe I'm looking for anything that starts with 200, for example. And so you know, as it queries out the data, you'll see now that it brings out accounts out of department or division 200 only. And so very quickly to do that, you can save these as your own. And so I might put, let's see, department 200 accounts. And I want to put that on my home page. So I not only want to create a favorite, but I want it on my home page, and I want to see this if there are accounts that match my description here, if there's anything. So really, if it's greater than 0. So if I have any accounts that start with 200, I want to know about it. And so let me just kind of force the home page to refresh. It usually does that in a couple of minutes, but there it is down at the bottom, and so department 200 accounts, you'll see there's 8. So I can click on that. I don't have to remember what my settings were. I don't have to rebuild the search. Of course, I could change it up now that I've got the query up here, and I could add any columns that I want. So maybe there's things in the database that I want, and so as long as I have security, everything in that part of the database is open to me. And you know, maybe I want to see if there's a transaction that was voided. Of course, that wouldn't make much sense on an account. The date that the account was created, and that's kind of important. And so I want to move this right up here by the account description, and when I click OK, the system requeries it back, shows me, of course, sample data is not a good representation, but shows me, ooh, that is old, isn't it? January of 1980. Shows me the date that the account actually got added to the software. And so really up to you, but this is really an ad hoc query tool that lets us really just kind of pull any data in any way, shape, or form that you might want to, that's useful for you. And we could all have our own different queries. Of course, we could share those with everyone else in the company and so forth. But let me toggle off now my home page and over to one of the area pages. So here, when I go into purchasing, this brings everything to do with purchase order and accounts payable and so forth onto my page. You'll notice that here, as I open up the customization, I've actually taken some things off my page, but I can easily add those back, and the same rule applies as I can kind of rearrange the page. But the idea is that, you know, if I don't use these things set up, I don't even have any access to, that I clean off the page or clean up my page, and here I can change the focus like we did on my home page. But let's suppose that I'm looking for vendor information, and I don't know a lot, but you know, I know the vendor. And so if I just pick one of my vendors here, we'll say Advanced Office, this brings everything up. We call this the all-in-one view, brings everything up to do with that vendor from the beginning of time. Of course, I can toggle off history or add history back as the case may be. And so if I'm looking for something that happened years ago, I might want to bring historical things up here onto the window. Of course, that populates a lot more data, but maybe I'm looking for a particular payment, and so here Let me get some payment information up, and it's payment maybe 252. Well, I could drill back on that and see, here's the payment information, the date. Oh, it was a check drawn on my bank called Uptown Trust. There's my check number. I can click on apply and see which invoices, in this case there's just one, that check actually paid. I could recreate the check stub and see if there were a multitude of invoices. They would be listed here on the check stub, and of course I could, same rule, I could print that or send that out to the vendor if maybe they lost their copy. But that's one way to look at the data. I could just tick the box, and when I say show me what's linked to payment 252, well, now I see the invoice, and of course I could drill back and see when the invoice went in the system. Oh, and I noticed that it came from my purchase order 2064. Well, yes, that's true, because we see in the purchase order column that the invoice was created from the receipt. The receipt was created from the purchase order, and so there's kind of my three-way match. And so by just ticking that one payment, I see, and that's why this is called all-in-one, I see all those transactions that are hooked together in the system. And we do this in purchasing, sales, and inventory. And so there's never any mystery about, you know, what paid which document and when, and oh, that we didn't pay that, we didn't take advantage of that credit memo on this check, or we didn't give the customer a credit, you know, and didn't apply that right, and so forth. You get it, you get rid of all that, you know, where you really can't figure out what happened. It's all in here nicely tied together, and so that's a very, very popular feature. The other thing that I didn't mention is along with a couple hundred dashboard style reports and the 1,000 or so off the menu kind of traditional older style reports, there's a couple hundred Excel reports. Microsoft realizes we all work with Excel, and so they built 200-300 Excel reports that are available to us. In the purchasing area, here are the ones that come kind of out of the box. You'll see there are several here. Every module, every series has its own group of Excel reports. You can edit any of these to your own liking. You can create your own from scratch if you don't like what Microsoft did, or you could use theirs out of the box like I'm doing. But there's a dashboard in every module, and so here's my purchasing dashboard, and when I click on view, that will go open my purchasing dashboard. Get it over to your monitor here. And so if I use the purchasing part of the system, this will populate with things like vendors and their balances if I have things that are below their reorder point. So I want to go take a look. Sometimes I mess up my sample data, which it looks like I did last week. I can see invoices or product that's been received, but I haven't received the invoice from the vendor. Here I've got some late shipments, that one I have working, and so when I click on it, it takes me to the late shipment data. And again, all just in Excel. Here's kind of a high-level vendor balance. There's outstanding POs by vendor. You know, we can get into, there's requisitions that have been submitted for approval. And so this is all up to you. This is just what Microsoft has done, but really up to us to add or subtract if there's things that we want that maybe they haven't thought of or put on the dashboard. We can easily do that, show you how to do that. You'll see over in sales, we have the Excel reports for sales. We also have dashboards there available. And so if I sort these here, kind of, let's do this. And so here's all my sales type reports. Oh, actually my Excel are in this other tab, sorry. Yeah, here's my Excel reports, and there's some dashboards that I built during some presentations. There's all those top ones are ones that I did in just short order. Here's my sales dashboard. I could run that. Of course, in financial, I have kind of a high level, again, would be more for the C-level executives. And I happen to be running these inside of the software because I'm actually in Dynamics GP, but these sit out on a network somewhere. They can be just called from Excel. You don't need GP to actually run these, and most people don't. So the folks that are running these are not Dynamics GP users. So here's a good financial here's just a summary of what we got going here in the kind of the P&L area. Some just again kind of KPIs here that we can kind of take a snapshot of the company. This dashboard brings in my checkbook balances over here. So hopefully I've got a deposit sitting on somebody's desk that needs to go right quick. We've got some ratios here that maybe I'm monitoring for a bank covenant. And of course I can tab through this and see those things that make up net income, for example. All the GL accounts are brought out here, and I've got kind of a unofficial profit and loss. I could look just at revenue, cost of goods, operating, and so forth. But this dashboard, because it's accounting data, I can quickly change periods. So if I said, well, this is Q2 of 2016, which is where I last left off, how's that compare to the second quarter of 2015? And so, oops, you know, with one click, I can bring that back a year or two, and the data refreshes just instantly. And so that's really the power of doing some of this in Excel with, and this slider bar is just an Excel tool. You may use that now in some of your dashboards. But, you know, if I want to see what those quarters together look like, and I'm saying quarters, that's just how I have my slider set, but I could look at right down to the day if I wanted to. That's just using the power of Excel, and so nothing magical there. If I can run Excel and have a connection to the network on my iPad, you know, if I'm logged into the network and I open this Excel file, I've got all my dashboards, and I don't have to be anywhere near the office or the business, and I have a snapshot of what's going on even in my absence. And so I think the very last thing we'll talk about is just more on the sales side, and that's the emailing of documents. A lot of folks like to email now, especially on the revenue side, because sometimes you get paid faster if you send the email out today instead of waiting for the U.S. mail to get it there. Nothing against the U.S. mail, but you know, it is what it is. And so here, I've got an invoice. I've kind of pre-keyed just a few odds and ends here, and again the red fields, remember, are required, and so this has got a lot going on because this is my order entry window. And so I can do a lot of things here. I can still do my document attachments, and of course you see that I've got a document out there because it's got lines on it, so we know what that tells us. But if I want to send this out in email, of course I do have an email set up. It happens to be my own, and I can immediately send that invoice out, and once that comes in, which it looks like it just did, and so I'll open that up, and I sent this out in PDF, and so there's the invoice 2266, the one that we just sent. Of course, I put a logo on it that, you know, there's a spot for your logo. Any of these can be changed. This is just the way that it comes out of the box, and so you can kind of see how Microsoft does it. Looks a little bit like Microsoft Word, which I think you would agree to, and so you say, well, you know, you might want to actually print one and not send that out in email. Okay, well, that's fine, we can do that, and so we'll just print that off to the screen, and you'll see Word popping up there, and sure enough, there's the invoice rendered out in Word. And so we make good use of the Office products, of course, because it is Microsoft, so you'd kind of expect that. And again, anything you like to do in Word, you can do. You can change any of this up to your own taste. It's this is just the template that they provide. And so I want to make sure there's time for questions. Those are kind of a highlight of those things that I thought might be interesting. But Ashley, do you have anything in the queue out there that people are dying to know?
It doesn't look like any questions were submitted right now, but if anyone has anything that they'd like to type in the question box, feel free to do it.
All right. Type that in there, and while you're typing or thinking, I do want to flip over to the financial area and bring up the journal entry window. And not that the journal entry window is exciting by any means. Oops, not that one, but I wanted to bring up an Excel file that I have sitting out on my drive here, and so we'll just find one. I've got a couple of, here's one, and so maybe I've worked up a big commission or bonus calculation, and I've done that in Excel, and now I really want to put this in as a journal entry of some sort. Now, this one you might argue rightfully that you could probably key that in as fast as you can copy and paste it, but to illustrate how this works, I'm just going to highlight that. I'm just going to copy just traditional Excel or any Word, Office, Microsoft copy and paste. If I want that entry into my GP system, I come in and of course I can fill out the dates and so forth, but I just click the paste button and you'll see that that pastes that entry right into the window here. And so I thought I could make that a little smaller so you could kind of see it in both, but sometimes when I'm in the meeting here it's a little hard to resize the screens without messing things up, but kind of get the idea that that's very, very simple to do. So let me overlay that. Yeah, so there it goes. And how about that way? And so that saves you from typing that in. And again, 4 lines, you might have typed it as fast, but you know, if you had 50,000 lines, hopefully you don't, but you know, if you got 50 or 100 or 200, 300, 400, that's a really quick way to get entries into the system just with a copy and paste. So anything sitting out there, Ashley?
Nope, you must have done such a good job explaining everything.
Everybody's ready for lunch if you're in Central Time. So, well, with that, I think those are the things that are of interest, I think, in the product tour. So thank you for joining. If you do have questions, feel free to reach out. You can always email into us, and we're happy to answer questions. Or if you want to look at a feature a little closer, we're always happy to jump on a little private demonstration of what the software might be able to do for you and your organization. But otherwise, Ashley, anything we need to do housekeeping-wise?
Nope, I will just be sending out a link to the recording this afternoon to you all. So if you have any follow-up questions, you can reply to that email.
All right, very good. Well, thank you all very much.
Thanks, Brian.
Bye.